With attacks mounting, the cost of war is now being felt by civilians. On day 6 of the Russian army's invasion of Ukraine, the Russian army pounded the city of Kharkiv. Massive attacks using heavy weapon systems against civilian buildings. Also, a convoy up to 60 kilometers long headed towards Kyiv. Indians being asked to evacuate from Kyiv immediately. And in Kyiv, there is trepidation that a major attack is coming.
A booming explosion. A ball of fire. A government building blown to smithereens. Charred cars with occupants all around. This shattering explosion in Kharkiv reflects the horror and human toll on civilians in Ukraine. The aftermath of cruise missile attack showed the historic building with broken walls, windows and debris strewn all around. These videos of attacks on once bustling Ukrainian cities boost Kyiv's claims that Russia has been targeting civilians and no military areas in large cities. The haunting images of massive flames engulfing residential buildings, roads, and leaving a plume of black smoke. This mind-numbing image of a Russian missile hitting Kyiv high-rise had earlier sent shockwaves across the world. The killer attack on civilians left many in Ukraine, including prominent MPs, in tears.
I'm in Lviv. I came here for several days.
Yes.
Lviv is nearby the Polish border.
Yes.
Because yesterday, my husband left to the war, and I came here to help him to gather all the stuff. He went to the south of Ukraine, where it's one of the hardest situations as well.
India Today has been documenting the civilian strife in its exclusive war zone report from Kyiv's street and underground bomb shelters.
There's an air siren going on. There's an air attack expected now. Maybe a bomb attack expected right now. And that's an indication that is telling people to take shelter. Go for some kind of bomb shelter right now. And this is an indication. This is going on continuously now for last 5 minutes.
Moments after the shots ended, the blasts were heard, the air raid sirens were heard, and people started taking shelters either in underground basements of their buildings or in metro stations or here at the Kyiv Central Station.
The war, blasts, and human suffering have triggered a massive exodus of refugees from Ukraine to neighboring safe havens. The UN putting the figure at over 5 lakh and counting. With Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar in Kyiv, Bureau Report, India Today.
The most heartbreaking piece of information from an Indian perspective was that an Indian student, Naveen Shekharappa, has been the first Indian fatality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Naveen was killed in the shellings that took place in the second largest city of Kharkiv in Ukraine earlier this morning. 21-year-old Naveen Shekharappa was a fourth-year medical student from Karnataka's Haveri. Naveen, who took shelter in the bunker, left during the curfew hours to buy essentials when the attack happened. According to Naveen's friend, who was in the bunker with him, he had not informed them before leaving his bunker. As soon as news reached Naveen's hometown, there was shock, grief. Prime Minister Modi spoke to the father of Naveen and expressed his condolences.
So your media informed to our senior officials, embassy, Prime Minister to bring back my son's dead body.
Okay.
And also I request to all these political leaders kindly look into the matter and see that donation it's very bad, and all these intelligent students, they are going to study in abroad. They think that education here, if they plan to get that education here, they have to pay crores to get that seat. And the same education, better than this, they are getting very good education in abroad, and all this practical equipment also very standard. Here in India, only that caste-wise, they are allotting the seat, because my son has got 97% in the previous.
I want to go across to Gaurav Sawant. He's joining us from Kyiv. He's been speaking to many Indian students. Gaurav, can you give our viewers a sense of how these students are placed? So those who are in Kharkiv or in Kyiv, are they being able to make their way towards Lviv? I just want to explain that on a map as Gaurav gets started. Where the Indian student Naveen died was in Kharkiv, which is close to the Russian border. This is Kyiv. Kyiv is the capital, which is where Gaurav Sawant is. He's on the outskirts of Kyiv now. And where they need to get is Lviv. So Gaurav, what kind of arrangements are these students being able to make? Because the government gets involved only once they get towards Poland. From the Poland border, which is where Abba Bakaya was, that's where the Indian government can take these students away. So what's happening in Kharkiv and in Kyiv right now, Gaurav?
In Kharkiv, there is intense shelling that's on. In Kharkiv, there's a war that's on between the Russians and the Ukrainians, and that is where these unfortunate children were caught in the crossfire. Many of whom we spoke to said they couldn't leave because their certification wasn't done. They could not leave because they did not know whether their classes will actually begin online, and there was a delay in the university authorities and the management communicating these details to the students, especially those who are in their final year, until they complete their certification, their internship, their practicals, which is like practicing in a hospital. They cannot get their degrees, and that is why they remained stuck there, even when the government issued an advisory asking all children, all students to leave as quickly as possible. And then suddenly when the offensive started, Kharkiv was the first place of offensive, and from Kharkiv, when I drove to Kharkiv, it took me about 5.5 hours to get to Kharkiv one way from Kyiv, and that was the time when there was no war on. Now with the conflict on, of course there were multiple checkpoints, we could see multiple vehicles moving in that direction, but now when there's a war on, these students just don't know how to get out. There are no buses, there are no taxis, there are no private vehicles, and nobody's bringing those vehicles out. So even when some of these students had actually pooled in money, hired a 17-seater, I spoke to one of those students who said, we hired a 17-seater, deposited the money, but that 17-seater never showed up at the time. And now credit cards are not working, debit cards are not working, children are running out of cash. So it's very difficult to make their way to Kharkiv, where government of India has now asked both Russia and Ukraine to at least have a little window where children, and Rahul, by some accounts, one of the coordinators was telling India Today, there are about 3,500 students still in Kharkiv. About 9,000 students have been evacuated or have made their way to the borders for them to be flown back to India. But if there were 16,000 students here, there still are close to 7,000 students still across various universities in Ukraine who need to make their way to Kyiv and then make their way, Rahul, to Lviv and then safely out of this country.
And the important thing is, a lot of other countries haven't even been able to begin their evacuation operations. So India has a head start, but it's a very, very tricky situation. Captain D.K. Sharma has been involved in many evacuation efforts. In fact, we've been on a few evacuation efforts together. I want you to explain, Captain Sharma, to everyone watching, and hopefully through social media, ultimately this clip will somehow get to people who are in Ukraine, because our coverage is being watched very carefully. What should students who are stuck in any of these cities where there's active bombing taking place, what should they do? What should they not do? What are the do's and don'ts?
Okay, students, I'm thankful to India Today, Rahul and Gaurav, who are there and who are, bringing us everything live. But now we come down to the brass tacks. I know you are youngsters between 18 to 22, 23, a lot of anxiety. So first few things are, please maintain your calm. Just maintain your calm, remain together, conserve, whether it is money, food, water, energy. You are in absolutely, hostile kind of a weather also. So the more you move around, the more energy you expend, the more things you need to keep yourself hale and hearty. And there is a lot of distances involved now. You have to travel all across Ukraine. And you see our air bridges, which you are probably aware that the government of India has mobilized all the machinery along with the lawmakers. There are a few ministers, senior ministers, who are already camping in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. So it's only a matter of time that A meets B. But now this A meets B has got a lot of intricacies. Unfortunately, we lost one of our own today morning in a shelling. So if you are undercover or kind of a, you are in a shelter, please do not move out till the time you are very confident or you see somebody that it's a kind of a green. Venturing out and not coming back, and then your friend goes to look for you, and what we are hearing is that this morning the case has been exactly like that, that he just went out to fetch some water or some eatables and he never made it back. So guys, please hold on together. There will be hardships, and let me tell you, our body, our composition, there have been cases where people have fallen into sea, survived for days together on salt water. So don't worry about it. You have to make a resolve that you have to come out of it. The government of India is behind you. The people are giving you latest information minute by minute. So it is a combination of all of things. Don't lose your balance.
And don't panic yourself.
Yeah,
don't go out. That's very important coming from Captain Sharma, because he's been involved in such operations. So thank you for joining us. My colleague Nabila spoke to some of the students who are in Kharkiv. I want to show you some excerpts of what these students who are currently in the middle of this battle had to say. Indian students very clearly tense, anxious, efforts being made to get them out, but that only starts once they're able to get towards Western Ukraine, from where these flights that have been sent as part of Operation Ganga can bring these students back. Till then, it's a very tough situation to be in. Joining us on this broadcast is Alexander Khabret, international desk editor from Kyiv, Ukraine. Hanna Lubyokova joins us, non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council in Belarus. I want to go across to Alexander Khabret first. From what we can see in those satellite images, and we'll play them out for our viewers just now, this military convoy of the Russian army, which stretches about 60 kilometers, we're being told, is coming towards Kyiv. People have been told to leave. You're in Kyiv. Can you give us a sense of the preparations in the city for what seems to be a very imminent Russian attack? It's happened in Kharkiv today. It seems the Russian army intends to unleash the same kind of havoc in Kyiv as well.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Yes, there are such an information going circulate, you know, the social media and the media, and from the statements of the intelligence community. But here, like, they are always going for the Kyiv since the six day before, yeah, and it's going to be quite hard to take the Kyiv within under any circumstances, because Kyiv is well prepared. Like every position in Kyiv is really observing, not only from the ground but also from the sky. Our military is preparing and preparing the positions. Also, the territorial defenses are local territorial defenses are like going, and making a more amount of the soldiers from the volunteers. The people are also like regular people and civilians are preparing and we say cooking the Molotov cocktails, like to meet those Russian army if they are like could penetrate into the Kyiv. So far, our special forces are demolishing and erasing Russian saboteur group who penetrated somehow with the paratroops, or they were staying here in Kyiv. And yesterday I witnessed the burnt technique in the streets of the Kyiv. So yeah, we are well prepared, and this on the ground here is pretty everybody is pretty sure that because of our military is so strong, so
okay,
we are not going to surrender, or they will not encircle Kyiv, because they need to to kill a lot of our soldiers, and
okay,
it's not
Anna
just
Lyubakova,
impossible.
at the Atlantic Council, a lot being said about the role of Belarus. The president said today he won't be mobilizing the Belarusian army against the Ukrainian army and people. However, your country is being used by the Russians, and if you look at the map, a lot of the attack that is coming in, the columns that are coming in towards Kyiv, are actually columns that are coming in from Belarus and towards Kyiv on this north-south axis, and therefore your country, despite what the president said, what's your sense of the role that Belarus is playing in this attack, ma'am?
Well, let's remember that this is not the country, this is the regime. I think that's really important to distinguish here, and also to sort of address Ukrainians here by saying that Lukashenko has offered the territory of Belarus as a country from which an attack happens. He offered infrastructure for the Kremlin, and he allowed Russian troops to come. This does not mean that Belarusians are supporting this. On the contrary, they are literally protesting against Russian troops being stationed in Belarus and being deployed in our country, and later attacking Ukraine from the territory of Belarus. Everybody in Belarus is scared that our servicemen, our soldiers would be sent to Ukraine, because this would definitely aggravate the situation, and this would definitely make our country again as an aggressor in this war of Russia against Ukraine. And even now, this is really traumatic. This is a real tragedy, not only for Ukrainians, but for us, the people of Belarus, that the territory of our country is being used in this way.
Okay, and can you give us, sitting where you are, a sense of how you see this war play out over the next couple of days? We're seeing in Kharkiv the Russian army use much heavier weaponry than they've been using initially, when they were more guarded about targeting civilian installations. Now they seem to be going hell for leather, and it seems that Kyiv would be their next target.
If this is a question to me, I would say that, of course, Kyiv has a really symbolic meaning for the Kremlin, for Russians in this attack and this invasion. And of course, that would be their primary target. But they are also targeting other cities all across Ukraine. However, I would actually highlight here the bravery of Ukrainians who courageously are defending their country, their land. And I think that's something that frustrates the Kremlin here, because they expected a blitzkrieg, they expected a really quick invasion, I would say, but now they are really facing a strong, powerful response from Ukrainians and basically the whole world. I would say that Putin is isolated here. He does not have any support apart from Lukashenko in this war, so this is also important to understand that the whole world is on the side of Ukrainians, and also Belarusians, the people, are supporting Ukrainians despite the regime, despite Lukashenko offering our country as support for the Kremlin.
For the time being, Anna Lyubakova, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks also to Alexander Krebret for joining us. I want to show our viewers a bit of what happened in the battlefield today, where Russia is being accused of using vacuum bombs, a weapon which is capable of vaporizing the human body in a matter of seconds. What are these vacuum bombs and why are they so dangerous?
There are bombs. And there is father of all bombs. If you think that Russians would not get overtly brutal in the ongoing war with Ukraine, the scale of aggression here will make you think again. The much feared vacuum bombs have allegedly made a devastating appearance in Ukraine war theatre. Russia has been accused of using the much reviled bombs by the Ukrainian envoy to US. Ukraine says Russia has dropped 2 vacuum bombs in Okterka-Samska region. These bombs are capable of vaporizing human bodies in seconds.
They are shooting us with missiles, ballistic missiles. They use the vacuum bomb today, which is actually prohibited by Geneva Convention. So, you know, the devastation that Russia is trying to inflict on Ukraine is large.
The vacuum bomb works by igniting a fireball that sucks in all the surrounding oxygen to generate a high-temperature explosion. The blast waves singe everything in sight, leaving no chance for any living being to survive. Russia was accused of using the vacuum bombs, banned under Geneva Convention during the Second Chechen War. America too used the non-nuclear bombs in Afghanistan against ISIS. Ukraine is now gathering evidence to drag Russia to the International Court of Justice and begin a trial against Putin for war crimes. Bureau Report, India Today.
As Putin's desperation increases, the kind of weapons that will be pressed into this war will be escalated as well, which also means that the level of devastation will increase to tragic human consequences. I'm slipping into a break. When we come back, we'll have a lot more for you. In fact, we have a report on how there's a 64-kilometer long Russian convoy that's been spotted heading towards Kyiv. You can see that on your screen right now. Massive Russian military convoy heading towards Kyiv, and the biggest question is what kind of havoc could this unleash once this convoy gets towards Kyiv? So we'll go across live to our man on the ground when we come back on the other side of a very quick break. You're watching India Today's live and continuing coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You're on board the Newstrack, and the biggest question in the battle of Ukraine at this moment is whether Putin's war machine is about to strike the capital city of Kyiv. We've accessed through the open source intelligence desk at India Today these satellite images of the Russian army marching towards Kyiv. There's a massive convoy that can be seen stretching up to 60 kilometers. All kinds of weapon systems required to pound an urban center are being brought towards Kyiv. We've seen in Kharkiv already a massive round of shelling all through the day today, and it seems that the same could happen in Kyiv very soon.
The first round of talks between Russia and Ukraine ended inconclusively. Even while the talks were going on, these satellite images released by Maxar Technologies showed a huge Russian military convoy making its way toward the capital of Ukraine. Earlier, the convoy was thought to be 27-kilometer long. Maxar Technologies' latest images say that the convoy stretches 64 kilometers from start to finish. The images are from the north of Ivankiv, a city roughly 80 kilometers from Kyiv. Houses and buildings are on fire, while the large convoy, sometimes in double row, is seen passing through the highway leading to Kyiv. The column stretches right up to the Antonov airport. One of the satellite images show a damaged bridge in the vicinity of the moving convoy. The convoy is protected by the artillery cover near the airport situated in the town of Prybursk. They are just about 29 kilometers from the Ukrainian capital city. Since the beginning of this Russian assault, Ukrainian forces have defended the roads leading into central Kyiv against assaults by the Russian forces that are massing around the capital. On the fifth day of this war, Ukraine's defense ministry released footage of the apparent aftermath of the Russian shelling on the town of Oktyarka in northeastern Ukraine. This town is nearly 5 hours drive away from Kyiv. Latest satellite images reveal additional Russian ground forces deployments and ground attack helicopter units in the Boklov area in southern Belarus. Boklov is less than 32 kilometers north of the border with Ukraine.
Now, the one piece of weaponry that the Ukrainians have in their arsenal are these Turkish drones, which can be used to lethal effect. Will these Bayraktar drones help Ukraine fight Russia? The chief of Ukraine's Air Force wrote a Facebook post in which he describes the Bayraktar TB2 drones as life-giving. Soon after this, multiple videos from official accounts of Ukrainian embassies and defense establishments showed a convoy having more than a dozen vehicles being consumed by a large explosion triggered by the firing of these deadly TB2 drones.
Perhaps the most compelling aerial image of Ukraine's counter-strike on its invaders. Look carefully at these infrared images. What you're looking at is a Russian missile position being struck from the skies by a Ukrainian drone. The drone said to be raining this hell on Russian forces is the Bayraktar TB2, a combat drone fleet supplied by Turkey in 2019. These drones carry 4 laser-guided missiles that have proven highly effective in combat. The TB2 has a flight time of 24 hours and a communication range of almost 185 miles, with a service altitude ceiling of roughly 25,000 feet. Additionally, some of these drones create a disturbing sound when approaching their targets, which can be psychologically unsettling. The chief of Ukraine's Air Force, Lieutenant General Mykola Oleshchuk, describes the Bayraktar TB2 drones as life-giving. Each Bayraktar TB2 system consists of 6 aerial vehicles, 2 ground control stations, 3 ground data terminals, 2 remote video terminals and ground support equipment. Bayraktar TB2 UAV can carry a maximum payload of more than 55 kilos. The standard payload configuration includes an electro-optical camera module, an infrared camera module, a laser designator, a laser range finder and a laser pointer. Ukraine is the latest instance of these formidable attack drones in action. Bayraktar TB2 drones were heavily effective for Azerbaijan against Armenia in November 2002, as testified by multiple videos that emerged at that time. A precursor to this was the success of the TB2 drones against Russian-made weapons in Syria and Libya. Key aspects like low visibility and detectability thanks to the low radar cross-section makes this drone slick and agile. It is interesting to note that earlier this year, Turkey and Ukraine had an agreement in place to co-produce Bayraktar TB2 drones at a production site in Ukraine. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov told reporters in Kyiv that the co-production compound would also include a training center where Ukrainian pilots would be trained. This had caused a lot of resentment.
I want to go across to Rajesh Pawar. He's live on the streets of Kyiv, and we're being told that air sirens can be heard behind it. Rajesh, you give us a sense of where you are at this moment and what you're seeing around you, because Kyiv is very, very dangerous to be at right now.
Look, just now the siren is just going off. This is again you see a high siren here. So this has been going on for last 10 minutes now. Continuous sirens, which means an expected air raid or a missile strike on Kyiv. And this is what is expected tonight: a heavy strike by aircraft or by missiles today evening. Also, there is large concentration of Can you hear me?
I hear you, Strength 5. Go on, please, Rajesh.
Also, there's a large concentration of land forces, Russian land forces there, including armored forces, mechanized forces. So it is expected that Russia will launch its final assault on Kyiv, maybe today evening or at the most tomorrow evening. Over to you, Rahul.
No, but Rajesh, how many citizens of Kyiv are still in the city? How many have evacuated? Are people still there, or have they largely all left?
See, most of the civilians here left about 4 to 5 days back. But since Russia issued these warnings, today morning that all civilians must leave Kyiv. Whatever little people were left here without any essential services, I think all civilians have left Kyiv. It looks like a ghost town now. No people around, no movement around except for few cars belonging to military personnel or maybe for people with essential services.
I hope you're planning to leave Kyiv as well. We don't want to put you in harm's way.
No, I will not leave Kyiv. I'll shake hands with Russians and then come back to India.
Okay, I must just tell our viewers, in case you're wondering where this bravado comes from, Rajesh Pawar, back in the day, was an Indian Army Special Forces officer. So he's been in hostile situations, understands war, understands dangerous territories, has been in quite a few himself. So his level of risk calibration is different from what anybody else who's watching at this time would probably have. But Rajesh, I must still insist that we're very, very worried about your safety and we'd like you to put safety first. Give our viewers a sense of what's happening around the town square where you are in Kyiv, especially given what's happened in Kharkiv, where the Russians came in all guns blazing, some very heavy weapon systems being used. How big is this city, and how long do you think the army that's in Kyiv at this moment will be able to withstand this massive Russian assault?
Look, Rahul, Kyiv is a fairly large city, fairly big metropolis with almost 3 million inhabitants here. But right now, people are very few. There are huge residential complexes in the area. I couldn't go around much today in the city, just around 2 to 3 kilometers from the city center. And I see everywhere military personnel placing barricades, making fresh constructions, anti-tank obstacles basically, so that that particular access or that particular road can be denied to any invading Russian army. This is all what I could see around. Besides this, there was total silence, no movement, no supermarkets open today, no food items available. If you want to buy even a small thing like I want to buy gloves, it's -6 outside here, and I have to hold my phone in my hand, and it gets freezing, but I could not even buy a pair of gloves here in Kyiv. That's the situation as of now here, Rahul.
Okay, and what about food and supplies? Are they available? I'm assuming that shops are all shut, so where are you staying? Where is food coming from?
See, I'm currently staying in a hotel, and they are providing us breakfast, and the quantity of breakfast is reducing for last 2 days. Besides, there's the shops. Yesterday, some supermarkets are open, but hardly any food items available. And my problem is I'm a vegetarian, so my choices are even more restricted, but that doesn't matter. The point I'm trying to make is here, the food items are in very short supply, and if a civilian is staying back, probably he will die of hunger rather than strike by the Russians. Over to you, Rahul.
He's a army officer's paratrooper, paratrooper, so he knows what he's doing. But I'd still be very, very concerned about your safety, Rajesh. We'll come back to you. Please put safety first. I've been insisting this all through our coverage, but we will come back to you. You're a brave man, and we will see what you're able to capture for us in Kyiv. I want to show our viewers what's happening on the airspace side, because as many as 29 countries have banned flights from Russian airplanes over their airspace. In a tit-for-tat move, Russia too disallowed airlines from 36 countries entry into its airspace. The economic cost, especially for the airlines industry, which is just about beginning to recover from the pandemic, could be devastating.
Just when the airlines industry was structuring a revival from the pandemic, the latest economic war between the West and Russia is seeing it hit a major air pocket. In a tit-for-tat move, European countries, Canada as well as Russia have banned each other's flights over their airspace. A look at this screen grab from the flight tracking app Flight Radar 24 shows just how effective the airspace restrictions are. Flight traffic over Russia is a fraction of what it used to be. Dozens of flights have been cancelled. Hundreds have been rerouted, adding miles to their routes, hours to their flight time, and a massive amount to their fuel bills. Particularly affected are the flights between Europe and East Asia, which normally take the Russia route. Carriers have had to divert flights south while avoiding hot zones in West Asia. Interestingly, the sanctions may also deplete the fleet strength of Russian airlines. 777 of Russia's 980 passenger planes are on lease. Of these, 515 are from foreign aviation lessors. Not only have the lessors recalled their aircraft, they have little chance of being paid the monthly installments because of the sanctions. The biggest impact, however, will be felt by the already stretched supply chains across the globe. COVID had already slowed and disrupted cargo movement, and the fresh sanctions will hit the sector ever more. Nearly half the cargo is moved by air, and Russia is a major intersection for global trade. Lufthansa Cargo has said it will no longer use Russian airspace. Air France KLM, Finnair, Virgin Atlantic all have stopped North Asian cargo operations. UPS and FedEx have also halted deliveries to Russia. According to an estimate, airlines responsible for moving around 20% of air cargo are affected by the bans. Air freight charges, which were higher by 70% on year in January, are expected to rise even further. Curiously, the US is still to restrict its airspace to Russian flights. It has, however, already asked its citizens to leave Russia immediately. Bureau Report, India Today.
I'm going to wrap up the news track for the moment, but every aspect of this story, whether it's the military aspect, the human tragedy, the international ramifications, the impact on the global world order, all of it being tracked on India Today like it is on absolutely no other station. We're not being alarmist or sensational. We're reporting the news. It is, make no mistake, a story that changes the world in so many different forms. And we're trying as best as we can to mobilize the might of the India Today group and bring this coverage to you on a real-time basis. And our team will continue doing this night in, day out, every single day till the time this war continues. And I'm hoping that it ends as quickly as is possible. But that end doesn't seem to be in sight. Rajdeep Sardesai comes up next with News Today on the other side of a quick break. So do stay tuned to our live and continuing coverage.